Today we have a group of fantastic women from the Energy Systems Catapult to discuss all topics around women in engineering as part of our celebrations and reflections for International Women in Engineering Day this year. And first up, I would like to introduce to you...
Hi, I'm Sam Islam. I'm a systems engineering consultant based in the systems integration team.
Hi, I'm Katie Chong. I'm a senior systems engineer in bioenergy here at the Catapult.
I'm Inès Tunga. I'm the practice manager for the renewables.
And I'm Pamela Espinoza, and I work in the consumer insight team.
And as your host today, I'm Kim Everitt, and I'm a transport systems engineer. Sam, what inspired you to pursue engineering as a career?
Great question. Thank you, Kim. So as a young person, I was always both very creative but also scientific. So I was looking for a career or a job or some form of pathway where I get to be both. And I ended up settling on engineering because I used to really love making things and building things when I was younger. But then I also really loved the arts and the sciences as well. So engineering ended up being the best choice to explore how to be really creative and express myself in that way. But also you are creating things that are incredibly useful and that people rely on and lean on, whether it's some, relating to transport systems, warm homes and so on and so forth. So it's all about helping people and being creative. So for me, that the aspect of engineering that really spoke to me as a career option.
So when I was younger, there weren't that many options if you're a bit of a nerd. And so when I was at school, I thought that I wanted to be a lawyer. And then I went and did work experience at a local solicitor's, and I hated it. It was so boring. And I thought, oh no, that's not for me. And then I happened to go along to, I guess it was a STEM event, but I don't think they were called that back in the day. And I heard a female chemical engineer talk, and I thought, oh, that's it. That's what I want to do. So it combined all of the sciencey stuff that I really liked, all of the maths stuff that I really liked. So after that, I decided I wanted to be a chemical engineer.
I suppose for me, my dad was a chemical engineer, so I grew up in a city where they had lots of minerals. So my dad was the director of one of the zinc company, if you like. And there was cobalt, there was copper, there was all different kind. So I kind of grew up being curious to know how these things, you see rocks on the road, how these things turn up to be other things. When I was about 10, we used to go, with your parent, you go to the petrol station, you were fueling the gas. I never used to get how that thing, that black liquid goes in the car and become a thing, makes the car move, etc. And then later on, I learned more and more about fossil fuel, what it does, the gas, the Vaseline, the everything. I just wanted to know more about it. So I started looking into that. I was very good in science in secondary school. I was loving math. And some parents, let's say, will kind of encourage you into some topic less than others. So when you say economics, they're like, why don't you try science? You're very good at it anyway. So that's kind of how I got into chemical engineering and then later on offshore renewables, etc.
Well, for me, I guess, I have to clarify, I'm not an engineer. But what I choose now, like as a change of career a little bit, because I've always worked in consumer insights, just in consumer research. And my aim and my goal has always been help people, I guess, understand people and give people what they need. And I think as a complementary thing, then I find this whole industry that is just trying to actually help people and do something for them. It's just that with engineering, they just know how. and so I feel like they both connect, and I just find it fascinating.
There's a real range here of what made you want to pursue it, and I really find it really interesting, especially Pam, as you say, you really wanted to help people. I really wanted to help people, but I also really wanted to make my parents proud of me and give them that reason to follow my journey as I continued to grow. I really liked the idea of becoming a dentist because it sounded really clever. I'd get my own office and I could even have a pink chair if I wanted. But that soon took a U-turn as I started to be introduced to cars and just seeing them, and the fast ones really caught my attention, and similar to you, Inez, like thinking how did it work and could I make it go faster? So that was really kind of what sparked my interest and what inspired me to pursue my career in engineering too. I love this conversation and where it's going. So really, how did your inspirations lead you to the career path that you're on now?
Thanks, Kim. So I've always been really interested in the environment. I've always been really into making sure animals are okay, and started my career as a chemical engineer. I first worked in the paper industry, and around that time, sort of climate change and net zero wasn't a thing at that point, but that all became quite visible in the news and in the media, and we all started seeing pictures of polar bears on their melting icebergs, and that was it. So that's still what keeps me going. So even today, if I'm struggling, it is a challenge working in net zero. You do come up across a lot of barriers. I just imagine that poor polar bear on his melting iceberg, and then that motivates me again to keep going. For me, it's all about the polar bears.
I suppose for me, going back to my story about the car and the fuel and how does that work, it led to chemical engineering with some elective in fossil fuel, oil and gas. And then later on, I think one of my first graduate role was in Aberdeen. And then I don't know if you remember the Piper Alpha disaster. So there was a massive spill. And those were among in my early careers. I was like, whoa, this is meant to do good. What's going on here? So very quickly with my lectures, I started asking, because there was a lot of noise around. We only have 50 years of producing oil and gas, etc. So that very quickly started touching on the environmental, how can we do better? So I started exploring. I went to my lecture and said, this doesn't look like it's a long-term career. Maybe I should look at something more sustainable, hence looking at offshore renewables and here we are. And I think one more thing to add is with the chemical engineering and the oil and gas, it was a very established, mature sector. You're joining experts that know what they're doing, whereas in the renewables, in the net zero, we are all creating this future. So, yeah.
I think you're right, Inés. I was going to say that. I think when I made this change of career, I thought I was sort of done with just helping brands succeed. I just wanted to do something more for our world, for us. And it's more about the future. It's really something that leaves you in peace within yourself, like thinking you're trying to do something. And even though, as Katie said, there's very hard, you're facing loads of challenges, basically more with people and how they think and how they don't trust some things. But I just feel like it's something someone has to do. And, well, it's better if we do it.
So, unlike my two colleagues here, I actually studied electrical and electronic engineering for my undergraduate. Sorry, not sorry. Because I was very interested in technology and the role that technology, I could see in the future that it was going to play a very big role in our culture. And electricity is such a fundamental aspect of our services and how we go about doing everything. So I was very drawn to that particular degree course for those reasons. And obviously now, we live in the electronic age, and there's a lot of challenging questions around the use of artificial intelligence and living in a more data-driven culture as well. So it was a very future-facing discipline to go into, and prepared me very well for my career leaving formal education. And after my education, I ended up doing a lot of industry hopping. So I ended up working in renewables for a period of time, working with non-profits and NGOs around the world to focus on energy for good, so to speak, because I consciously made the decision at the time that, you know, as an engineer, you have the opportunity to make a large amount of difference. What kind of difference do you want to be making? But then I also spent some time working in oil and gas as well, and that was also a very educational experience. And then also ended up working in transport, in particular the rail industry, and doing that industry hopping and working for different types of organisations, whether they be profit-driven or not profit-driven, gave me a really good perspective on kind of the spectrum of the role that engineering plays. And sometimes it's incredibly obvious and sometimes it's incredibly not obvious, and an understanding that sometimes good engineering, you can't feel good engineering, and that's the point. It means that everything is running smoothly and running well. I also did some engineering in the theatre world, so I'm kind of one of the STEAM people. science, technology, engineering, arts and mathematics. Actually a huge demand for technical people and scientists to work in the arts sector to move kind of things like film and media forward as well.
There's such a variety of experience here. It's just amazing. So what would you say your hopes are for the future of women in engineering?
I think what is the benefit of what we do? If we are making it better for the environment, like Katie said, or for the consumer, or the end users, we need to strip away almost, it needs to be the why we're doing it, who does it benefit, does it make people better, does it make the environment better? And I think taking the first step, it doesn't really matter, in my opinion, and from experience, the first degree you have. I think what you're going to use it for, how you're going to use those skills is really what matters and for what benefit. Engineers, science, of course, we want more engineers to, get the skills that are required. But bottom line is, how can we make our world better from the environmental to other aspects?
And I would just add that I think my hope for the women in engineer for the future is that it's the same hope I have for women in our society in general. I think that we are more respected, that they do not just consider us or hire us because they need to comply with their EDI policies, but because they actually value what we have to do and say. So yeah, it's a dream, but we'll see.
No, I echo your point, Pamela, and you're right. We want to be at a point where women in engineering is no longer a novelty, and we're seeing the equal pay and the access to resources and proper maternity across all sectors and not just small pockets. We want the leadership teams that are genuinely diverse and not just in gender, with more background and perspectives. So, really we want to see young girls growing up and seeing engineering as absolutely for them, and actually across industry it's open for them to consider.
So I would say that we tend to use the term women very homogeneously, I think that's the word, so to speak, and not really look and understand the scale of diversity and complexity that exists within our community. In particular, womanhood and being a woman means different things to different people, and we should avoid taking a one-size-fits-all approach to inclusivity and equity for women towards progressing women and trans women through the engineering profession.
As we really summarise some of our reflections, what would you say is your top tip for getting into engineering?
I would say my top tip is to seek out community that share your interests, whether it is a specific topic within STEM that you're interested in, or you're generally interested in how to enter the STEM profession. There's a number of outreach organisations that you can join up to, or reach out to people who are working in a field that you are working in to get some advice on how they got into that industry or into that side of the profession. And if you can't find a club or a community, then start one.
So what are your thoughts, Katie?
I would say my biggest piece of advice for women in engineering is to keep talking and keep having a voice. It is hard as a woman sometimes in these very male-dominated industries to feel like you've got a voice. So I would say that what you've got to say is really important. And so keep talking, keep being present, and don't give up.
Yes, and for me, I suppose for those who are unsure about the STEM and the career in engineering is, first of all, find what you're passionate about. It can start by loving putting Legos together. It can start by loving destroying we used to have radios where you kind of dismantle it can start with the small thing, or creativity. You talked about art, or try and understand beyond that what's the link here. Start there, start from the passion and build onto that. What are the skills that can be useful, from coding to AI to mechanical to everything. So there's so much out there. And reiterating my point, it doesn't really matter the first degree then that you go for, because that just opens the door to so many more opportunities.
So another point I think is that if people are feeling unsure about a career in STEM, I would say take the time to identify why you're feeling unsure about it. So obviously STEM people, especially engineers, we are problem solvers at heart, and people are the biggest challenge to understand and to resolve. What are essentially the greatest problems facing humankind at the moment is to start with yourself. So whatever uncertainties you have about entering the STEM profession, whether it's the concern about the lack of diversity within the profession, or you don't see yourself being represented in the profession, I'd take that as an opportunity to be the representation that you are looking for.
Definitely agree with you there, Sam. And you know, it's to have those thoughts about not counting yourself out before you've even tried it. If you've got some kind of spark, or if you've got some kind of curiosity in a certain subject, why not look into it more? Because you'll never know if you don't find out yourself. This can then lead into, by exploring what you're interested in, it could also lead to some opportunities that open up. And it doesn't matter how small they are, if you say yes to them and explore them, you can again find them out and apply it to what you want to do in life and where you want it to take you.
To add to that, there's more and more opportunities to network. There's more and more opportunities where you get almost a feel of what people do from school, from secondary, primary. And that's probably the best way to learn and ask the question, what do you do? How fun is it? How boring is it? And I think slowly you start building a picture of what you don't want to do, which is helpful. And then you can then work out, so I do enjoy this. Let me explore it, like Kim, you were saying. So yeah, there's a lot out there. Just reach out.
Thank you for joining our conversation today as we talk about all things women in engineering, and we're really looking forward to continue these conversations beyond International Women in Engineering Day. If you enjoyed it, let us know in the comments, and we hope to welcome you to some of our similar sessions in the future. Thank you.